Hey everybody, happy Tutorial Thursday. It's the Thursday lunchtime tutorial stream on the Beading Dreams channel. Hope everyone is having a great Thursday. It is definitely hot outside today here in Dallas. Oh yes, I walked from my car and felt like a wilted flower by the time I got here, and it's only an 8-minute walk. But I'm inside in the air conditioning. Hopefully you are as well, especially those of you who are on the west coast of whatever country you're in who are having a heat wave. And we are going to do a fun earring class today on our lunchtime stream. These are what I've named our Picot earrings. This is actually a technique that we have done before, just in a little bit of a different sort of application. So if you're thinking, hey, this looks kind of familiar, you're not wrong. Okay, this is, when we're talking about wire techniques, like there are an infinite, I can speak, I swear, number of wire techniques out there, but a lot of them are just permutations of the same thing. And so that is what this is on the stream today. So these are our Picot earrings, and so we're actually going to make these earring hoops, and we're going to do that out of 20 gauge half hard wire. We're going to hammer them to give them a little bit more sturdiness and also to make them nice and shiny, and then we're going to add our our beads onto our earrings. So let's talk. Woo, I think the heat melted my brain, y'all. Time to hydrate. All right, let's talk tools and supplies for this afternoon's tutorials. So as far as supplies go, you're going to need 2 different kinds of wire. Well, hello, Scott. Welcome to the stream. It's warm here in Dallas, my goodness. All right. So you're going to need some wire, 20 gauge wire, but there is the applicable, hey Lori, how's the weather up there? You still hotter than hot? So here's the applicable thing about this wire, and it's, unfortunately the label has split the line here, but HH means half hard. Okay, so let's talk for just a second about wire temper. So typically your wire is going to occur or be manufactured, because it's not like wire grows on trees. Your wire is going to be manufactured in 2 different tempers, dead soft and half hard. So once the wire is drawn into its appointed size, it's going to be what's called half hard temper, meaning it's got a little bit of spring to it. Now if you're doing something like an earring hoop or a wire wrap, that's good. If you're doing something sculptural, like say our project for Saturday, that's terribly frustrating. So wire manufacturers will give you the opportunity to choose half hard or dead soft. So for 99.9% of what I do, I will use the dead soft wire, because also manipulating the wire wrapping it, hammering it, etc., will work harden it and will change the temper and move your dead soft to more of a half hard state. So I typically find that once I'm done working with it, it's going to be half hard anyway. But when I'm doing something like an earring frame like this one, and here's the applicable thing here, is I really can't use a very heavy wire when I'm constructing this particular type of earring, because the wire has to go through your ear. If I were doing something that was a separate frame with an ear wire, then I could use whatever gauge wire I wanted. I could use 18 or 16 or 14 to make it sturdy, but since it has to go through the ear, I'm limited. Most people comfortably can only accommodate a 20 gauge in their ear holes. And for anybody who's looking for random knowledge, most of your commercially available ear wires are made with 21 gauge. So 20 gauge is pretty much the max if it has to go through somebody's ear, which is where the half hard comes into play. It's a sturdier wire, and it's going to be overall a little bit more durable in your earring. You're going to need some thinner wire as well. I'm using 26 gauge. That's going to be to attach my beads, and then of course you need beads. Something small, 3 or 4 millimeters is going to work great. Tools, you're going to need your basics. You're going to need your chain nose pliers, which are Heather's that I stole last night. You're going to need a wire cutter, and you're going to need a round nose pliers, which I need to go grab in a minute. You're also going to need a, I live in terror of my hammers now. I really need to find a better way to store them. Chasing hammer, bench block or bench block equivalent, and then a file or some 320 grit sandpaper. So I'm going to start by cutting this wire, and a cool thing when you're doing, oh, and also you need a stick, 1 3/4 inch dowel. When you're making hoop earrings, one of the easiest ways to make sure your hoops are consistently sized is to start with consistently sized pieces of wire. So I'm going to cut 2 pieces of wire of my 20 gauge. Exactly, Mary. Every project should require a stick. I agree. I'm going to cut 2 pieces of this 20 gauge half hard wire. I'm going to cut them both 7 inches long. And as long as I cut the 2 pieces of wire at exactly the same size, that should ensure that I have earrings that are identical. Should being the operative word. I guess that is one, advantage to having a cane is you have, an automatic whacking stick should you ever need it, or earring mandrel should you ever need it when you're out and about town. If you're like, oh my gosh, I need to make a pair of earrings, you've got it right there. You are completely prepared. All right, I'm going to run grab my round nose pliers. Back. Alright, so we're going to start out by making loops on these earrings, and these are going to be the receptacle of the closure for our hoop. So I'm going to take my round nose pliers and I'm going to take my wire. So you'll notice your wire has a curve to it. This is the grain of your wire, and this is what we want to wrap around our stick. So we're actually going to make our loop perpendicular to this grain. So I'm going to hold my wire at the end of my pliers, I'm going to brace against my finger, and I'm just going to roll and roll until I have a nice closed loop. And then I'm going to grab at the very base of that loop, and I'm just going to bring it back so that what I have now is a loop that's centered over my wire. I do want that loop to be closed, so if it's not closed, I'm just going to go ahead and move it a little bit until it is closed. Then I'm going to repeat on my second piece of wire. Now here's the trick, is you got to make the same size loop. So that was about yay far down on my pliers, because if you make different size loops, then you've automatically made your wires different length. Roll, roll, and back. There's my loop. Close if necessary. Mid-80s, and that's still pretty warm for you all. Also, since you're on the West Coast, it's pretty early, isn't it, Lori? Like, it's several hours pre-noon, and it's already in the mid-80s, so welcome to Texas. Sounds like our weather. Except I think at 10 a.m. today, it was in the 90s already, but that's because it's Texas. So I'm going to take my looped wires, and I'm going to, it's 11:30, okay. Oh, so you're only an hour earlier. Still too hot for it to be in the 80s, or still too early for it to be in the 80s, I think. Okay, now I'm going to take this piece of wire, and you'll notice you can kind of see it sort of glinting. That glinting is stabbiness. It's pain and sorrow for your ears. So what we want to do is we want to file that down. If you don't have a file handy, your 320 grit sandpaper is going to work well for this as well. But basically, I just want to blend that down. I want to knock down that edge. And the goal here is to just blend it to the point where you can rub it against your finger and it doesn't hurt. Because just straight off the wire cutters, if you try and put this in your ear, it is not going to be a fun experience. So it doesn't take very long, and you can see what I'm kind of just trying to do is knock down all of the corners. So any kind of cornery or sharp bits on this, I'm just trying to file them away. And once it shouldn't take very long, especially if you have a sharp file. Now you're going to grab your stick. So I'm going to take the loop of my earring, I'm going to hold it firmly against my stick, and then I'm going to bend my wire around my stick like so, so it overlaps, and then I'm going to let it go. So the first thing you're going to notice if you're working with half hard wire for the first time is it's much springier than dead soft wire. So it's going to spring up a lot more than you're used to. So once again, wrap that. So when you're forming anything with your half hard wire, like an earring or bracelet, whatever, bear that in mind. It's going to get a lot bigger. So you need to use a form, a mandrel, whatever, that's significantly smaller than what you're trying to create, because see how much that sprung up? It's a lot. Now I'm going to just go ahead and adjust with my fingers this circle. I'm going to pull it out a little bit, and I'm just going to bring this up, and then I'm going to do this, and you have to do this even more so with half hard wire than you do with dead soft, where you've got to bend your wire past the point you need it to go to and then let it spring back. Okay, so that's one fairly decent circle. I'm going to do the same to the other. So once again, this is what it looks like when it comes off of the stick. So I'm just going to widen that out a bit. I'm going to adjust the curvature here, just make it a little bit less so that it looks more natural. And then to deal with this space, I'm going to bend those two pieces past each other and let them snap back. All right, so now I've got two wire circles. Also, the hammering is going to change the tension of these a bit, so I'm going to go ahead and do that before I do any further manipulation. So I'm going to grab my hammer and my bench block. Put that down on my work surface in front of me. It's going to get loud for a minute, so if you want to mute me, feel free to mute me, and I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to hammer my earrings, and I'm just going to hammer the bottom of the curvature here. Okay, so don't ever hammer the part that's going to go through your ear. Sorry, that's my hammering face, y'all. Okay, so now that I've hammered, a couple of things have changed. Number one, the texture of my wire. You can see it's flat and it's shiny. Number two, it's a lot sturdier. Like my hoop is it's really hard for me to stretch it out at this point, which is exactly what we want. Now, what has happened though is the alignment of these has gone cattywampus, so I'm just going to go ahead and try and fix that by bending my wires. And there you go, that's my nice hoop. I'm going to do the same for my other one. And this one didn't get quite as bad, but I'm just going to bend these. So what you want is just something that looks like, you know, a hoop that you would buy in the store, meaning you want it to be round, you want it to be sturdy, you want it to be lined up, you don't want it to be, you know, cattywampus all in 17 different directions. And as long as you have that, you are good to go. So now let's add our beads. I'm going to go ahead and take my 26 gauge wire now. If you have 28 gauge wire, you could also use that. If all you have is 24, that would probably work as well. It's just kind of about what you've got on hand. For things like this, usually though 26 and 28 are going to be your preferred gauges. So if you have those, or you can lay your hands on those, that's what it would be better to use. So I've got 18 inches of my 26 gauge wire, and then I have my little half strand of orange cubic zirconia beads. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and just divvy this strand up in half so that I know that I have enough for my second earring, because I only have one strand, and if I put too many beads on my first earring, I'm going to run short on my second, which is going to be a problem because, like I said, only one strand, all I have. I think one strand is going to be enough, but it might not be. It might not be enough to do as much as I did on my prototype earrings. So let me just quickly count 3, 6, 36. So I used 72 beads on my prototype earrings. This is less than that, which is fine. So that's 24. And then, of course, 10, wow, talking and counting is hard, apparently, on a Thursday morning. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14. 20. Anyway, what I was going to say, 22, 24, is since we are going to be putting these on in multiples of 3, when you're divvying up your strand, you want to do that in multiples of 3. So I'm just going to go ahead and start adding groups of 3. So that's 27, 30, all right, so it looks like 33 is going to be my magic number for each, which is just one grouping less than what I had on my prototype earring. So I think it's still going to look fine. So I've got 2 groups of beads here, and I've got my hoops, and I've got my 26 gauge wire. So now we're going to take our 26 gauge wire, and I'm going to start in the front of the earring. So the way that this type of earring works is this is the part that goes through the ear, and you're at the end of the process going to flip that up to make a catch. So this therefore is the front of your earring, because that's what passes through your ear hole. So I'm going to go right down here to about where I started my hammering, and that's about an inch or so from my loop. And I'm going to take my 26 gauge wire, and I'm just going to hold that firmly across my frame. And then I'm going to anchor it on, and the way I'm going to anchor it on is I'm going to wrap it around my frame tightly about 4 or 5 times. Now you can totally cheat because this is not a closed circle. You can scoot through this space. Right here it makes life a lot easier. It's way easier to go through that space than to try and bring your wire through the center, because when you bring your wire through the center, you run the risk of kinking it, which is no good. Okay, so it's on there nice and tight 4 times. Now I'm going to go ahead and, there are 2 ways to do this. There's the efficient way, and then there's the less confusing way. So the less confusing way goes like this. I'm going to string 3 beads onto my wire. 1, 2, 3. Then I'm going to take my beads down to my earring, and I'm just going to bend my wire so that I make a little kind of swag with my earring. It's not, the title of the class is a bit of a misnomer because it's not technically a Picot because it doesn't make a triangle, but I'm always pressing, for names of classes at, 3 a.m. So then I'm going to wrap it around 3 times, and then I'm going to put on my next 3. So 1, 2, 3, and again. Make your little swag. Hold that swag tightly on the outside of your earring, and then wrap 3 times. So 1, 2, 3. And you want those wraps to be nice and close together. If they're not, you can totally cheat and squish them together with your fingernail. Don't squish your picots together too much though. You can, it's just then you're going to need more beads to take up the space on your earring. Okay, so that's the less confusing way to do it. Now the efficient way to do it is at this point I'm going to thread all the rest of my beads onto my wire. So I'm just going to take all of my remaining beads in my pile here for one earring, and I'm going to thread those onto the wire. Which is going to take me a minute. So I hope everybody's having a good day. Like I said, we are hot, hot, hot here today in Dallas. We of the Beading Dreams do not actually park our cars in the lot. That belongs to Beading Dreams because it's a very congested lot, and we like to leave the parking for the customers. So we park about a quarter of a mile away, which is usually a nice walk, but on hot days, oof, it's a thing. So once again, at this point, I'm just threading all of the rest of my beads onto my wire so that I can finish this up the most efficient way. So generally speaking, if you're trying to increase efficiency in your working, like if you are selling jewelry, you're trying to, cut down your time, therefore being able to produce more pieces within a set amount of time, etc., etc. Working assembly line fashion so that you're doing all of one step. Hi, Sophia. At the is it Canada Day today? Happy Canada Day. Sophia's going to be moving up there much closer to Canada soon with her new job. She's moving to far northern Wisconsin. But anyway, so doing all of the same step at the same time dramatically decreases the amount of time you spend on a project because, number one, your brain doesn't have to keep switching gears, and number two, there's more efficiency of motion, there's less changing of position, etc. So now that I have all of my beads strung onto my wire, I'm going to just make a little twist in my wire at the end. So I'm just going to fold that over and twist it like so. That's so that my beads don't fall off. And then I'm going to continue with my little picots or swags, whatever you want to call them. So all I'm going to do now is I'm just going to pull up 3 beads and hold them against my earring and then wrap 3 times. 1, 2, 3. And then 3 more beads. Wrap. 1, 2, 3. Not 4, just 3. So this is obviously the more efficient way to do it, because now all I have to do is, now that I've got my beads strung on, all I've got to do is just make my little picots. One, 2, 3. Not to be confused with Picot, which is the name of one of the cats that you met at the beginning of quarantine when I was streaming from my dining room. Sophia says she can almost like Canada. I'd say them's fighting words, but I think as long as you don't have a hockey stick in your hand, you're probably fine. So I'm just adding. And once again, it's apparently hot in Canada. Though if it's 78 in Chicago, it's got to be pretty nice where you are, Sophia. Okay, so I'm just continuing on with my little picots, and I've got 1 more left. So even though I'm 2 groups short of what I did on my prototype, it's really not a huge deal, and also don't feel like it's a big deal, and I did manage to wind up even, but don't feel like it's a big deal if you have if you start higher on the front and you can't finish out in the back. That's fine in my opinion. If you're gonna do that though, it looks a little weird if the back is high and the front is low, so I would start higher in the front and end more soon in the back. So now I'm anchoring this off, which means I'm just going to do 5 wraps. I've got 3 already, then 4, then 5, and then I can cut off this wire and this wire because I am done wrapping. So I'm going to trim. And trim. And then pointy stabbies. We don't want those, so I'm going to just take my pointy stabbies, press them down. You just want to press down nice and firmly so that they don't scratch when you rub on them. If you need to readjust the shape of your earring at this point, you can. And then the last thing you're going to do to finish the earring is you're going to take your chain nose pliers, just grab the end of your wire and flip it up. This earring does work better if there's some tension on it, so it's never a bad idea to kind of stretch it open a little bit so that when you fasten it, you've got a decent amount of tension holding that closed. So that's one earring. Now it's time to do the other earring. I'm going to do this one the quick way because I think you can all handle it. So I'm going to cut another 18 inches of my 26 gauge wire. And I'm going to start on the front of my earring loop that I made. Once again, the front is not that side. The front is this side. So this is the part, okay, this is the part here that goes through your ear. That's the front, okay? It goes through front to back. So that's the front of your earring. So again, I'm going to go about an inch down, like so. And I'm going to wrap this on. So I'm going to hold that across my frame, and I'm going to wrap that on 5 times. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, like so. Now I'm going to take a minute and I'm going to thread all of my beads onto my wire again. So I've got all 33 of my beads, I think it was 33, onto my wire. See, the good thing about having pre-counted them is now I don't have to count them. They're already counted. So let's see, anybody who likes to see me play with fire, of course, it's Torch Thursday on the 6 p.m. stream tonight. So I'm going to be making our gallery wire ring. That is this one here. So we've done gallery wire in a couple of different instances before. So this is just using that same technique to essentially gallery wire set a cabochon and make it into a ring. Very excited about that. And then tomorrow night is our Zoom Crafty Cocktail Hour. So tomorrow night at 6 p.m. you will not find us on Facebook. You will not find us on Zoom. You will find us on Zoom. You won't find us on Twitch is where we will not be. We will be on Zoom from 6 to 8, crafting, having fun, definitely drinking, in my case, but please don't feel like you have to. But it's always a good time. Everyone gets to kind of show and tell their projects and what they've done over the past 2 weeks. If you've got any questions about Beading Dreams projects or other projects that you've been working on, you can absolutely ask those. Heather and I will both be on to kind of be there for you as far as technical support, and it's just a fun time to hang out, and I like it because it's the time where I get to see everybody's face. Y'all get to see my face all the time, but I never get to see yours except for every other Friday. So that's tomorrow night, and then we'll be back on Saturday night with a wire-wrapped cabochon pendant class. I'm pretty excited about that one for you guys, and then a live merchandise sale Saturday at 7:30, where we're going to finish up these 8-inch gemstone strands and probably do some other fun stuff as well, since I don't think the 8-inch strands are going to take up the whole sale. And then we're into another week. What's happening next week right now? I have no idea because today is my day to make samples. I have some earring classes running around in my head. If anybody has anything that they want to see in next week's class roster, now's a good time to put those ideas up in the chat. And you never know, even if they don't get made or don't get used for next week, they might get used for a subsequent week, because I'm always interested in what kind of content you guys want to see. Okay, so I've got all my beads strung on. So I've got this nice long line of beads here. I'm going to take my wire, grab the end of the wire, and just once again put a little twist in the wire. That's just so that my beads don't fall off when I'm working. And then I'm just going to start making my little picots. So I am just traveling towards the other end of my earring, and I'm just going to start wrapping those on in 3s. Now notice I am going to go down on the opposite side of the wire that I came up on. That is just going to help everything sort of stay stable and stay centered. If you do them all on the same side of the wire, I find that they have a tendency to kind of try and just progress around in a circle, and sometimes you wind up with something that looks a little weird. So that was 3 wraps around. And again, so I'm coming up on this side of my wire, I'm going down on the other side of my wire, I'm holding my picot as I'm wrapping. 1, 2, 3. going to put 3 more beads down. And I'm going to wrap. So make sure you get those in between wraps nice and tight. So once again, once you've got your beads strung on your wire, it goes pretty quickly. Alright, keep adding. And so you don't have to do this in groups of 3 like I'm doing it. You can do it in bigger groups. You could do 4s or 5s. You could also do singles. The technique applies the same way whether you're doing, 5 or 1. Alright, we are getting there, almost to the end. Again, it's 1, 2. And you can also, you'll see I just did it by accident, you can change the shape of your picot by pushing your wrap wires closer together, which will kind of bump that out and make it have more of a triangular shape, or pulling them apart, which gives you more of a swag shape. So those are both totally valid. Of course, the swag shape takes up more space, so you can make a full round earring using fewer beads if you're making the swag shape than if you're making the triangle shape. But once again, you don't have to go all the way around your earring, and you don't have to be even from your beginning to your end. Okay, so what did I do? So I started a little bit lower on the earring that I'm working on than I did on my first earring. So what I'm going to do is I am just going to squish those picots together, and I'm going to just kind of use that to pull out as I progress down and just move everything over just a bit, which takes a minute, but it is doable. Move that up a bit. Okay, and I'm going to put my last grouping on. And then my anchor off is going to be 5 times around. Once I have done that, I can go ahead and trim that off. And then go to your beginning, trim that off. Remember, just the tiny wire, don't nick your earring. And then press down your pointy stabbies, of course. And then last thing to do the earring is grab, again with your chain nose, flip it up, stretch it open just a bit, and there you go. And that, lunchtime crafting people, is our Picot earrings. So much fun things, so many fun things you can do with this. You can make them bigger, you can make them smaller, you can add your beads in different patterns. You can do the squish together picots, you can do the wider picots, but all kinds of fun stuff you can do with this technique. So I'm Allison from Beading Dreams in Dallas, Texas. Of course, we are, as most of you know, an actual brick and mortar retail bead store. That means we are open for business. We'll be opening for business in about 5 minutes. We're here Monday through Saturday from 1 p.m. till 6 p.m. if you're local in Dallas. If you're not local in Dallas, you can find us on this channel, twitch.tv/Beading Dream, 5 times a week with complimentary tutorials. We do stream on Wednesday through Saturday at 6 p.m. Central, plus Thursdays at noon, and live merchandise sales every Wednesday and Saturday night at 7:30 p.m. Central Time. So it's time for us to open Beading Dreams. So thank you so much for hanging out with me at lunchtime and making our Picot earrings. We'll be back, like I said earlier. Thanks, Susan, with our torch project this evening. That's our gallery wire ring. So if you want to see me play with fire, hopefully more successfully than last week, Okay, bye, Lori. We'll see you later. Tune in tonight at 6 p.m. for that Torch Thursday stream, the gallery wire ring. I hope everyone has a fantastic Thursday, wherever you are, whatever you're doing. Hopefully we'll see you tonight. If we don't see you tonight, hopefully we'll see you on another Beading Dream stream very, very soon. Everyone take care, and we'll catch you later.